Nice, Top Gun, I like that. Awesome. All right, so my business when I joined MPE was at a little bit different place than a lot of the stories you've heard. So what I decided to do is I decided to teach you 10 lessons that changed my business that I've learned over the years. So we're going to talk about mistakes, mishaps, misfortunes, and hopefully eventually mastery. So these are my kids. This is Layla and Noah, and they seem super happy right now. It wasn't always that way. My story really starts, my daughter was 7 months old. It's about 2 weeks before Christmas, and 3 o'clock in the morning, she's crying for a bottle. I'm walking around, I'm holding my baby, and I'm feeding her, and I'm singing to her, and I'm trying to calm her down, and I start looking at her, and I just begin sobbing. And at that point, I didn't realize, I didn't know whether we were going to have a business in January or not. So how did I get to that point? Every business goes through a phase, and it happens so often that venture capitalists call it, they have a term for it, it's called WFIO, W-F-I-O. And it stands for, we're effed, it's over. Raise your hand if you've been in that position. If you don't have your hand raised, you haven't been in business long enough, right? So it's going to happen, so just kind of expect it. This is the situation that I was in, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But first, I'm going to give you a little bit of history. So my story really started when I was in elementary school. I was an obese kid. I remember one time in second grade, we were trying to do somersaults in PE, and I was too fat to do somersaults. So the kids started calling me jelly rolls and making fun of me. And at that point, so I've been aware of my weight since I was in second grade, right? When I was in sixth grade, it got so bad, it was so relentless, I was pretty sure no one would ever love me. I came home and put a loaded pistol to my head and almost ended the whole thing. So when we designed our program, I'm very aware of what it's like to be unhappy with where you're at, right? Now, clearly I took a very straight path to where I am now. But, you know, I ended up in the year 2000, I decided to look at training and nutrition for myself. It became a passion of mine. I dropped 25 pounds, and then I realized I could help other people, so I started personal training. And fast forward to 2009, and this is when we opened our facility. So the entire facility, CrossFit Bartlett, was 800 square feet. You're looking at the whole gym. And we had 3 clients. 2 of them are in the picture, and one of them is my ex-wife. And so that's how we started, you know, and in 3 months we had 30 people. We needed to make a change. We needed to move, and we moved into this space. This is our current space. We have 6,000 square feet now. And at that point, when we moved in, I was like, well, if I sell my truck, I can pay rent for like 2 months, so it's going to work. So luckily, I never got to that point. But back to my story. So it's 2 weeks before Christmas. I'm holding my baby. I'm sobbing. The business, I don't even know if we're going to have a business. What had happened was the 2 of my lead coaches, both of them, just informed me after they cashed their Christmas bonuses that they're going to leave and open competing gyms against me. Has that ever happened to anybody? A couple. Okay. That's fun. So what an a-hole I must have been, right? Because they didn't even talk to each other and talk to each other about what was going on. They both decided that they could do it better than me and both opened separate gyms. So they approached all of my clients, right? And they talked to my clients, and they convinced a lot of them to go with them. And so I learned my very first lesson of business in the fitness business, and that's that they're not your clients, right? They choose you. And so every day, whoops. There we go. Max. All right, so every day they choose you, and you have to keep that experience going, right? You have to deliver that wow. You have to deliver that experience. And the experience isn't just about results, right? Results are expected. That's like Starbucks celebrating the fact that they made you a cup of coffee, right? You have to deliver that experience. And so your clients choose you, and you have to keep them choosing you. So shortly after that, I had a meeting with the rest of my staff. And this is literally one of the worst days of my life. So I sat in this meeting with the rest of my staff, and my entire staff proceeded to tell me how much I sucked. Like how much, what a terrible leader I was, how much they hated working for me, what an awful position it was. And at that point, is literally awful. You know, at that point, I realized my second lesson, and that's that managers tell people what to do, but leaders inspire people to do the right thing, right? So I wasn't inspiring them, I wasn't leading them, I was telling them what to do, and it was my way or the highway. And I learned some valuable lessons that day. Now, a year or so later, I hired a guy, moved him from Georgia, brought him in to help me run my gym. And he was there for about 3 months, made friends with a couple of fluent clients of mine, and convinced them to go open a gym. So it happened again, right? So all of a sudden, clearly I wasn't learning these lessons yet. All of a sudden, I was the victim. You know, I lost $50,000 in revenue that year, and 50 grand. And I realized at that point, or in much retrospection, I look back at it, and I realized one thing that I didn't do besides lead them is I wasn't vulnerable to them. So I had a hard heart from before. I was so worried about getting screwed over that I manifested that to happen, right? So I made them sign non-competes. I was like very guarded. And the lesson that I learned there is vulnerability leads to trust, right? Loyalty and trust. So I wasn't vulnerable to these people. There was no way I could build trust with them, and they left in very short order. So after much retrospection, I have looked back at that, and I've learned this lesson, and that's ownership, right? The common factor in all these issues is me. So I was the problem, and I can also be the solution. So I've continued to work on my leadership, my personal growth, right? Sean talked about that yesterday. And after working on my personal growth, you know, I'm not perfect. I screw up all the time. But I'm continually working on getting better and becoming a better leader. So that's something that we've gone through. Now, in 2015, before MPE, I had we were doing about $20,000 a month in revenue, so we'd grown it back up. I had one full-time employee. I was working 100-plus hours a week. I needed more revenue to hire more people, and I needed more people to make more revenue. Anybody ever been there? All right, flying that circle, right? So I joined MPE to take my business to the next level, and the first thing that I learned was the concept of margin. Now, I understood margin with other businesses, but I never really understood how to put it into a fitness business, right? So I learned that, and then we started practicing this. It's not how much you make, but it's how much you keep, right? So once we did that, we raised our rates, and when we raised our rates, we raised it to one of the highest in town. Our close rates went up. We started signing up more people. We started making more revenue, and then we could bring on staff and pay them a decent wage where they could actually deliver, right? Now, the second thing that we changed was our introduction process. So essentially what would happen is we would bring people in for an introduction, and that introduction included a workout. So we'd work them out, and then after they're like cyanotic and laying on the floor, we try to close them on a fitness sale, right? So that wasn't working. So Tom Jacobs, on a phone call, we started talking about my processes before I joined MPE, and this is the very first exposure to MPE. He says, you're not selling a really hard workout, you're selling a solution to a problem. And my mind was blown. I'm like, yeah, you're right. So we stopped doing a workout that day. We started going into the auto closer presentations, presenting solutions to problems, right, before and afters, and our business exploded. Now, fast forward, I'm working and I'm talking with my coach, Jake Thompson, and I'm like, gosh, we need more leads, we need more leads. We need to get more leads for CrossFit. I had this boot camp that was running pretty well, and we were converting, I don't know, about 15% of those to CrossFit. And we were discussing that, and we would have a conversion discussion with the boot campers, but it was kind of like, hey, you should upgrade, right? And Jake Thompson's like, dude, you don't have a lead problem, you have a conversion problem. He said, you have 25 to 35 people standing in your program, standing in your building that know, like, and trust you. They're getting results and love you. Why are you not converting them? And I said, you're right. Let's change that. So we started doing consultations with every single boot camper, upgrade consultations. And now, I mean, we have 80-plus boot campers, so that's 80 hours of consultations per boot camp, right? And now we convert half of those to $2,300 CrossFit contracts. So our business exploded. It took us from 100 to 200 clients. Now, we've always looked at this thing of core values, and I read hundreds of business books, right? So core values and mission statement, all that sounds awesome and corporate, you know, but we never really kind of dialed that in. And Helen Keller once said, the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. And so we decided to go through this process. We took our team to a staff retreat, right? I think we worked 150 hours in like 2.5 days. But anyway, so we went through this process, went 8 hours of developing our core values. And guys, it was one of the best experiences of my business life. And when we got done, like literally, you know, you hit the nail on the head when everyone in the room is crying. Like, they're that bought into what we're doing. So this is a picture from that retreat, and this is where we set our 1-year, 3-year, and 10-year targets, and we're on track to hit all those right now. This is our core values. This is what we came up with. So we have lead with love, live by when you win, I win, always give perfect effort, fight for the last 10%, strive for Kaizen, practice gratitude, show grace and humility, and be passionate and have fun. And the when you win, I win, that's really one that we focus on, and we've built a culture into that now. Like, this is a Facebook post that someone posted tagging us in it. If you go to my Facebook page, it's literally like a book of testimonials where we're tagged in everything. It's amazing. Now, I went to VIPU, and in VIPU, we did this target market thing, right? And so I realized that when you fail to focus your efforts, you're not really serving anyone. And so we went through this target market exercise, and we're going through this thing, and I realized that I had this massive epiphany. I'm like, we're doing amazing work with these people, and we're not targeting those people. Like, what the hell are we doing? You know? And like, we've been targeting the wrong people the entire time. And so I literally, like, I broke down. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, for the first time in my life, I realized, like, what we're meant to do. And so we started servicing these people, 30 to 45-year-old females who want to lose 30 plus pounds. They want to be healthy and go for a walk without feeling winded. They have the energy to play with their kids, be comfortable in their clothes, and no longer shop in the plus size sections, right? And this is one of our clients after like 6 months of training with us. So we're making life-changing experiences for them. Now, the last thing that I learned is to know your numbers, right? We've drilled that in, and had I known my numbers, I wouldn't have made like one of the worst mistakes of my life in business. And it was October of 2013. We were coming off the best month ever. And at that point, we thought we were doing fantastic, right? I didn't realize at the time there were some underlying things going on. Some people weren't one of our coaches was pissing people off. They weren't going to renew. We spent money like we were at Google going into December. We paid into a boot camp, $6,000 cash up front. We spent all this money, and then we didn't realize at the time that we were going to be cash flow broke. Right? So at that point, if I had been dialing my numbers, I would have known that. But I had to go to a bank and lie. They're like, yeah, business is great. Look at October's numbers. They were fantastic. I need a line of credit just in case. When in actuality, in 6 weeks, we would have been out of cash. We would have closed my doors. So realize at that point that it's critical to know your numbers. Now, here's a little bit before and after. So before MPE, we were doing roughly $20,000 a month, kind of stuck there. In a year, we celebrated our best month ever of $60,600. So we're pretty excited about that. We went from 115 regular members to 200 plus, 30 to 40 boot campers regularly to over 80. We have 10 CrossFit leads a month to 50 plus, 5 to 6 signups a month to 15 to 30 a month, depending on if we have a CrossFit program or not. Nothing in savings to about $40,000 in savings. Not paying myself to pay myself $5,000 plus a month. 1 full-time staff to 3 full-time staff and 4 interns that are chomping at the bit to work for us full-time. Breaking even to doing $5,000 to $10,000 a month in profit. Now, these are the 10 lessons in summary. So they are not your clients, they choose you. Managers tell people what to do. Leaders inspire people to do the right thing. Vulnerability leads to loyalty and trust. Ownership, the common factor in all these issues, is me. It's not how much you make, but how much you keep that matters. You're not selling a hard workout, you're selling a solution to a problem. You don't have a lead problem, you have a conversion problem. The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. When you fail to focus your efforts, you aren't really serving anyone, and to know your numbers. Thank you.